My name's Ben McKenzie. I'm a specialist emergency physician and I've been a specialist now for 15 years. I also work as a retrieval doctor for an ambulance service and I've been doing that for 15 years as well.
I'm Tamara McKenzie. I trained originally as an optometrist and have worked in health policy and areas of accreditation and regulation since then. And I'm Ben's wife and a mum to 3 kids.
So Max was staying with his grandma, as he did once a week for a long time. He ate an apple crumble with some finely ground walnuts in it that was in some catering that he accidentally ate. Shortly after eating the apple crumble with the walnuts in it, Max became itchy and he started to get symptoms of asthma.
My mum phoned me to say that Max was having an allergic reaction. She didn't know what it was to, but they'd just eaten an apple crumble. And Max was in the shower and I was around the corner. And so I said, can you put Max on? And I spoke to him and said, I'll be there really soon. He said, that's fine, I'm just having a shower. And then I got there and realised that he was having a slight problem breathing, or just that he was his breath was harder at work. And so he gave himself the EpiPen and called 000.
When paramedics arrived to assess Max's oxygen levels were 100% and he was able to talk in sentences. He was able to tell the paramedics that his asthma was due to anaphylaxis. The paramedics were with Max for half an hour before he had a respiratory arrest in the ambulance. And during that time, he had a linear deterioration in terms of his oxygen levels going down and his difficulty breathing going up until he reached the point of decompensation. I was at work in my retrieval job, in my retrieval uniform, and I realised that things weren't going well and had to leave work. I rapidly made my way to the hospital and went into the resuscitation cubicle that Max was in. And I arrived there 17 minutes after Max. And I immediately realised that he hadn't been intubated, which I couldn't quite believe. I remember a sense of disbelief. But simultaneously I realised what the problem was, and that even though Max's heartbeat had stopped, that it would start again with oxygen. And it did when he was finally intubated. When I arrived in the resuscitation cubicle, the thing that I saw was that the resuscitation team was doing a pulse check or a rhythm check to see if Max had a heartbeat, and so they paused CPR for that. And during that's when I walked into the room and I saw on the monitor that Max had no heartbeat, apart from the occasional dying heartbeat that's not normal. We call that an agonal rhythm. And I could see that the problem was that he wasn't being oxygenated properly. I realised that there was no one leading the resuscitation and that it was completely chaotic. And so I became the de facto team leader. And after the 3rd failed attempt at intubation, it was only the first that I'd witnessed, but knew that too much time had gone past. I immediately directed a surgical airway as the team leader, and the way I did that was to say that he needs a surgical airway that he needs a scalpel finger bougie. And then I yelled to get the scalpel.
Yeah, I can picture it. I can picture Ben coming in, and I was so relieved that he was there.
Within a couple of minutes of Max having a tube and getting oxygen, his heartbeat started, as of course it would. And then it was actually possible to oxygenate Max despite him having severe asthma, despite him having vomit in his right lung, despite the tube being pushed too far down in, and just being in that right lung, I could still oxygenate him with a bag and an endotracheal tube, to a point where he was no longer sustaining hypoxic brain injury. But it was too late. It took 23 minutes to intubate Max instead of 3. Max then went on to ECMO and was stable and made a physical recovery. But he died 13 days later from severe brain injury. Because Max had spent such a long time without any oxygen getting to his brain became extremely damaged. And so that even brain signals like keeping your heart going were damaged, and that's why he suddenly stopped unpredictably died 13 days after he had anaphylaxis. So the things that went wrong for Max were that he didn't get enough adrenaline, that he didn't get enough oxygen, and that is why his heart stopped. But it was the asthma that made him stop breathing. It was the bronchospasm that made him stop breathing in the back of the ambulance. He ended up having a surgical airway and was presumably a difficult airway when 3 attempts at laryngoscopy were made. But that's not why he stopped breathing. He had laryngeal edema because it took so long for laryngoscopy to occur. Intubation for Max was indicated 5 minutes before he arrested, probably. And he didn't get an endotracheal tube until 40 minutes after he had a respiratory arrest.
As a parent, when something like this happens, tragedy like this, there's only really 2 things. I mean, firstly, I want Max back, and that's not possible. So the one thing parents need is all of the information: what happened, what went wrong, what could have happened differently, what should have happened differently, what are the learnings from this, what are all the facts. And that's really important to help grieve and to help understand and to help work through what's happened. Secondly, we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else's child and anyone else's family, because it's a horrible thing that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. And so we hope that anything we can do after Max's death in terms of raising awareness and amongst medical practitioners and amongst the general population about how to stop this happening again, then that's all we can want. And I just hope that we manage to stop this happening again.
Being transparent is part of the healing process. Embracing learning opportunities that arise when mistakes happen is the mature way of dealing with this and the most constructive way of dealing with tragedies that happen.